This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Coming out of high school, he had great size and athleticism. It wasn't just about athleticism and size. It was also about his football smarts and his instincts. A really just good, well-rounded football player.
The guy has incredible work ethic, and that's the reason why he's so successful.
Intercepted! Right on cue, Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Quarterback pulls it down. Intercepted by Alabama. He's going to go down the near sideline. Touchdown, Alabama!
Minkah's definitely one of the smartest football players I've ever been around. He knows what's going to happen before it happens.
The dude stays in the film room. I mean, if anything, I think he sleeps. I think he sleeps in the film room.
And we welcome you to another day. This is a special Thursday. Hope all is well wherever you are. We have a lot to deal with today. You saw Minkah Fitzpatrick at the top of the show, and there's a reason why we were talking about him and talking about his greatness. Because we're 2 weeks away from the draft, and the Bednarik and Thorpe winner is expected to go very high, one of the best defensive players we have seen in a long time in this part of the country, compared to the likes of Patrick Peterson and Charles Woodson, who only won a Heisman 21 years ago. Minkah picked up 2 national championships, a near miss, and many memories as he gets ready to head to the NFL. And we say hello to you out there in TV and radio land, and we say hello to Minkah Fitzpatrick up in Connecticut. Minkah, listen, I think I woke up with you. I don't mean that literally, and I'm talking to you now some 8 or 9 hours later. You have made the rounds. You started the day in New York. Yeah. You're now at ESPN in Connecticut. Good afternoon, and take us through your day. It must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's been a fun day. I started off in New York. I started on the Get Up show out there, and now I drove over to Bristol, Connecticut. And I'm having a good time just talking to people, doing different shows, and answering a whole lot of questions. I'm having a good time, though.
I know you're a young man that's been everywhere from the White House to national championships and hanging around Nick Saban. But I'm always interested in this as someone who sees the other side of ESPN and media. Take us through maybe 1 or 2 people that you met today that you were impressed by.
I mean, just everybody here. Everybody's really, really open. They're asking a lot of questions that are even related to football. Asking a lot of questions off the field stuff. Just really want to get to know me as a person, not just as a player. And it's been cool just getting to meet new people from all over the place, from California, New Jersey, New York, Florida. And it's just really interesting seeing all the different types of people. Okay,
I lost money, Minkah. Laura Rutledge bet me that you would name her first, since she interviewed you 2 hours ago, so now I'm in trouble. Anyway, all kidding aside, let's talk about the most important stuff, not the people you're meeting today, but what you will be doing in 2 weeks. And you met with so many different people connected to the NFL. You're projected to go extremely high. Tell us what you know in terms of the teams that you've met with and feel comfortable with. I know you just want to go, but take us through that process as well.
It's been a whole lot of fun. I've been traveling. I visited 3 different teams: Chicago, Tampa, and San Francisco. Just talked to the coaches, talked to the owners and the GMs, and just asked them questions. They asked me questions. Got a feel for them. Got to know me a little bit better. And you just enjoying the whole process. It's been a whole lot of fun, and it's once in a lifetime type of opportunity. So I'm just taking it all in and doing what I can to enjoy it.
In a perfect world, maybe deep down you would like to go one place over another, but I know that's not the wisest thing to say right now, because you may say I want to go here and you could actually go higher. Do you have a preference? I'm not asking you for it, but I'm just curious deep down within.
Nah, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. As long as I get the opportunity, I'm going to be happy. As long as I'm out there playing, able to make plays, staying healthy, I'm going to go out there and enjoy every minute of it.
Let's talk a little bit about your years at Alabama. I don't think it could have gone too much better. You were certainly one of the best players in recent Alabama history. You picked up 2 national titles. You played in 3 national championship games. As you reflect back, let's talk about some of the people that you've been around, and especially, and let's start with your coach, Nick Saban.
Oh, man, it was an honor to be coached by somebody like him. He has 40-plus years of experience in the game. I just soaked it all in, just asked as many questions as I could. He challenged me a lot on and off the field as a player and as a person. So just being able to be coached by him it was an awesome experience. I learned a whole lot, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. We won a lot of games together, won some championships together, but it was a whole lot of fun.
Mink, I know you had a couple of different coordinators with Kirby and later with Jeremy, both of whom have gone on to head coaching positions. But we all know, and I've been to those practices, Nick Saban thinks that's his position, the one you played. How often did he come out and try to tell you how good he was at that position?
Oh, man, he would say it all the time. He wouldn't go a day without saying it. Every time we did a certain technique or a certain type of coverage, he would always say that he would be able to do it the best or better than anybody out there. And he took pride in it, and he believed it, which was the funny part. But, none of us
that is
believed
pretty
it.
funny.
We didn't think it was the truth.
Okay, you have to answer this question for us because you're now done with Alabama's. You dealt with both young quarterbacks, obviously, Jalen and Tua. If you had to make the decision, who would be the starter for the first game in 2018?
Oh, that's a tough question, man. Both of them are great quarterbacks. Both of them make plays with the feet and with the arm. They both win games clearly. But that's up to the coaches. That's up to those two players right there just to fight it out. And I have major respect for both of them on and off the field. And we miss playing with them for sure. And that's really a tough question to answer.
Well, let's make it easier. Describe both quarterbacks in terms of their attributes. Obviously, you have high regard for both, but break them down from your position on the other side.
Mm-hmm. I would say Jalen Hurts. He's a really good at managing the game. He's really good at he doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. So you really got to try and do your best just to do your job on defense when you're playing against him, because he's gonna be at his best at all times of the game. He's gonna extend plays with his feet. He's gonna move around the pocket, make throws. He has really athletic receivers on the outside that you could get the ball to. So you got to just be on your A game the whole time when you're playing against him. And then Tua, he sees the field really well. He has a strong arm, and he has a whole lot of maturity. Both of them have a whole lot of maturity for the ages. Both younger guys that behave off the field and on the field like they're certified vets out there. So yeah, that's my scouting report on those two.
You ended your career on the sidelines only because Tua was out there throwing the winning pass, but I'm curious what you must have been thinking, because you know what he did on that play, and he was up against a good defender, but he faked them off. Were you able to pick that up in real time? What was going on?
Yeah. I had seen it. The safety was in the middle of the field. They were playing the former cover 2, and Tua just kind of looked over to the right to look him off a little bit. And then he just threw the ball with looking like for only like half a second to the left, and safety wasn't able to get over the top half quick enough, and Tua just dropped the ball in there perfectly. Devontae fell right underneath it, and that was it.
How much pain were you playing in that final game? Because we were all concerned about you in Atlanta.
Yeah, I was hurting. I had bruised my kidney real bad in the week before, the game before. I couldn't practice a whole lot. I could barely even stand. During that week of practice, I had to just lay down during practice until Saturday was the only day I could really practice. I practiced like half the practice, and it was tough. It was tough. I had to fight through it, but after the game, I went right to sleep. Didn't do too much. I was real beat up, real tired, and but yeah, it was definitely worth it for sure.
I know you got to go, but had it not been for the national championship, would cooler heads have prevailed and maybe kept you out of that game? Because I talked to people the night before, and they were still not sure. They said you could not take a hit in that game very hard, or you were going to be in big trouble.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How'd you get through it?
How did I get through it? I was just thinking about winning that game. And it was a tough season. I had previously got hurt my hamstring, and I was just fighting through that before that, and I wasn't going to just give up on the last game of the season. The most important game of the season, the championship game. My team needed me out there to make plays, make some calls, and do what we had to do. And I couldn't not be out there with my teammates. And I had thought about not playing, but I was like, after a little while, I was just like, nah, I can't not be out there with my boys.
Well, it was a courageous move, and it paid off for the Crimson Tide, and obviously you came out of it well. Thank you. I know you have a lot to do. We really appreciate you coming by today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Clyde is in Georgia, and you are on the air. Hello, Clyde.
Hello, Paul.
How are you?
This is my first time calling. I've listened a lot, and
wonderful.
I'm a blind person. I live alone. I'm a retired police officer. I lost my vision in law enforcement, and
oh my goodness.
And I'm an avid college football fan from many, many, many years ago, and I wanted to touch on something about the old school football with you. I might even go back further than you, because I think that you'd probably be my junior if the truth was known.
I'm glad to hear somebody's junior.
Yeah, right. I used to enjoy football every Saturday afternoon when we watched. We didn't watch it. We listened to it on the radio. There was no television. And several of us gather around and listen to whoever was on the air at the time. Might be Georgia Tech playing Tennessee or some other teams. But I listened to the Notre Dame Army football a lot back then. Those were the heydays for those schools, as you may well know.
Oh, sure.
And back in the 40s, they had two fellows there for Army, Doc Blanchard and Glenn Davis.
Oh, sure.
I believe they referred to him as Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside.
That is correct.
And I followed their football a lot, and I also followed Notre Dame when they had boys like Johnny Lujack in there and all. You remember him?
Yeah, I mean, I know who he is. I'm a student of the game.
Yeah. But anyhow, I just want to touch, for the sake of whoever's listening, older football fans, that back when you could visualize a field. You'd never been there, but you could visualize a field whenever you got into this game. The commentators were so great. I mean,
Clyde, I remember they always would say, Notre Dame has the ball moving right east to west or right to left. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The great broadcasters in radio did paint a vivid picture.
And I don't know that I would have come as far as I did with college football if I hadn't have been inspired by just sitting and seeing what your mind could do for you, not your eyes, but your ears and your mind.
I'm curious, Clyde, and I know you called me, but how long ago did you lose your eyesight?
Right about 40 years ago. I had 25 years in law enforcement, and I had to give it up, and I was in a pretty serious automobile accident. But
well, the reason I ask is I've told this story before, but a very close friend of mine, he passed away about 15 years ago, was a blind man. He lost his sight during the war, and I sat with him many a day watching a football game, and he was and I was doing the description, and we had the best time together. He ended up being one of the world's greatest blind golfers.
Really?
But it just showed, and you could give a seminar on dealing with disability, but it shows what people can do, and what you have encountered, and listening to you is just a great inspiration to me.
I've had a guide dog for a while, and I've gone around to a lot of the schools, elementary schools and high schools. I've been invited to by the principals and so forth, and talked to the students about what it is, number one, to be in law enforcement and then lose your vision and have to give it up, and then what it was to be a blind person out in the world. And it's totally a readjustment, let me tell you.
I can imagine. It's just that is just such a great story. Do you still have your guide dog?
No, I don't have them. I've been through 3 of them.
Okay.
In my lifetime, and every one of them breaks your heart when you lose it.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I've always just been, and I'm a lover of dogs, but just the intelligence level that these dogs must have to have in the training to do it correctly.
Yeah, I went to a guide dog school in Florida, one of the biggest in the nation, and I got 2 dogs from there. One died, and I got another one. After that, I was qualified to train dogs, and my 3rd guide dog I got from a pound. He was a throwaway dog, and
really?
I got him and took him to the vet and got him fixed up like he should be and cleaned up and all the fleas gone.
Oh, that's amazing.
That dog trained just as good as anybody from the school.
That is fascinating.
And I had that dog for 11 years.
Wow. I mean, that is such a great story.
Anyhow, I didn't call to talk about that necessarily.
Listen, I'm the one that asked you, so blame me.
I want to talk a little bit about the old college football, and that's what brought me to today. I have a big screen TV, which I watch you on, and I watch college football every Saturday when it comes on, and they have a good selection of games across the nation, so you don't have to watch the same team. Used to on the radio, you'd get whoever they brought, and that was about it, and that was on Saturday afternoon. They didn't have many night games they ever broadcast that I know of.
Well, Clyde, I wish you well. I hope you'll call back. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Well, it's nice talking to you, and I don't have any problem if any of your listeners want to talk to me and your people care to give them the number. It'll be fine with me, sir.
I will do that, and you be well, and call again very soon, I hope.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Clyde. That's amazing.
Bye-bye.
I mean, I don't mean to start interviewing our callers, but just think of the idea of what losing your eyesight, and then the idea that a dog, your entire life, is dependent on that dog knowing what he's doing. I mean, I have a hard enough time getting my dog off the couch, let alone have him walk me through the streets of Manhattan. Let's go to Bill in Starkville. How are you, Bill?
Oh, so I get to follow that. Thanks, Paul.
I knew you could handle it, Bill.
Well, of course I can. I mean, and for all the things that I would ordinarily be expected to talk about, what has occurred to me is, in this downtime of the season, with all the new coaches, just because I think Bobby brought it up, it was really funny because I was already thinking about it. Y'all need SEC, ESPN, whatever, needs to do a new series on the coaches' wives in the SEC. Like we did at the very beginning.
We did it at the beginning when the network launched.
Yeah, that's when you fell in love with Bielema's wife and everybody else's wives and whatever, I mean, and so now there's lots of new sheriffs in town.
Yeah, I've gotten to know a lot of the wives, and I've also, as you know, Bill, because you've been, I've gotten to be yelled at by a lot of the wives. So,
well, of course, that's all together, but they just seem to be appreciated and focused too. I mean, I was just going like, we need to do that again, especially with all the new coaches. And by the way, in the last segment, we had Mason and Summerlin, and neither one of them their wives, if they are married, appeared in that series.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I found a little disconcerting or whatever. It doesn't matter. But anyway, outside of that, it's all good. It's springtime. Now I'm in trouble, so now you're in trouble when you bring your stuff back over here. But my main thing was just, again, to say, now that we've turned the page, we've got a lot of new faces. The women, like always, bring everything into focus. Even Megan with Mullen in Gainesville is not going to be the same that she was here in Starkville in terms of being the coach's wife. So that's the good news. That was my point. Hope everything else is well with you.
It's great, Bill. Thanks for asking.
As always.
It's springtime. How can you beat it?
Oh, I mean, I've come home and everything is budding out, and I'm like should be here. And I'm sorry, I'm really sad for Vic Schaefer and his girls that they didn't finish the act. But what a great bunch of people.
Yeah, it was amazing. I had a chance to talk to Vic the day after, and I hope he's doing well. He's been a great friend of ours.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Delighted to be joined by Matt Baker down in Tampa, covers the Gators, among other things. And, Matt, it's been a while. We are glad that you have joined us. Thanks for the time. As we welcome you in, we just heard from Dan Mullen during the commercial break. I get the question every day. You probably get it 100 times a day about the quarterback situation. Hello, and what's going on down there?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Paul. Yeah, the quarterback situation's kind of where it was last year. It looks like Felipe Franks still kind of has the edge. He struggled in the one open scrimmage that we saw a couple weeks ago. Threw a couple picks, but not all of them were his fault. It was rainy, and there's a bunch of ifs and buts there. But the fact is, he's still the most talented quarterback on the roster. Maybe Emory Jones, the early enrollee, can get there eventually, but right now he looks like a true freshman playing in his first spring. And Kyle Trask, another redshirt sophomore, he's got some talent as well, but he was a high school backup down in Texas, and he's shown flashes, but I don't know that he's consistent enough to be the guy. So right now, I still think Felipe Franks is the guy to beat, but we'll get a better taste of where things are in the spring game on Saturday.
Let me ask you about Jones, because naturally he's the buzz because of the circumstances involving his recruiting. What can you tell us about us? And I assume the upside's pretty high.
Oh, yeah, the upside definitely very high. I thought he looked very smooth. His passes have come out a little bit wobbly. I've seen not necessarily the most accurate yet. And obviously he's still learning the system. Again, he's been through 13 practices, 14 practices, whatever it is. You expect all that stuff. But like I said, he's a smooth, and I mean that as a passer as well as a runner. You can tell there's some athletic ability there. And it's, kind of what you would expect from a Dan Mullen quarterback, to be able to tuck it and run when need to be, move out in the pocket, do RPOs, that type of stuff. So I definitely think he has the talent, the potential to be the starting quarterback for this team down the line. Initially, I thought that could be in September, but right now I think it's probably a year or so away.
I have a couple of questions. I think I'm going to hit you with about three former coaches in the SEC. Let me start with Steve Spurrier. I realize he's the ambassador, but it was announced the other day that he's now going to be a coach, and I'll try to remember the name of this league, the Alliance of something. But how has that story played? I'm happy for Spurrier, but has it had much of a ripple effect down there?
Not really. I think you summed it up. Yeah, everybody's happy for Spurrier. Great, he gets to coach again, which is something he loves to do, and obviously he's been great at it. It's something where it's not as much pressure. It's not a 60-hour-a-week, 70-hour-a-week, 80-hour-a-week job like being a head coach in the SEC, but it's going to get him back in the game. But, I can't say I've had a bunch of emails and tweets or anything like that asking me about Steve Spurrier and this team in Orlando from the Association Alliance of something or other.
Yeah. You know the name of the league about as well as I do. This story did get a lot of attention that you did and you broke, and people tend and want to take shots at Jim McElwain. Certainly he brought a lot of this on, but you told a fascinating story the other day in your newspaper that a lot of us felt badly about for having maybe misread or misjudged the initial story. Let me have you explain it. We're talking about Jim McElwain selling his house for a lower rate than we originally thought, but we didn't realize what was really going on.
Well, you mentioned a lot of people feeling bad about it. I'm including myself in that because I thought it was, there were easy jokes to make, but I felt like an idiot afterward. So he sold his Gainesville home. He bought it for $1.8 million and sold it for $1.4. So, the jokes were really easy. Ha, 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 Jim McElwain took another loss on his way out of town. Ha, ha, ha. But then I found out the story why, and that's because there is a family in Gainesville that has two children with disabilities. One of them is in a wheelchair, needs a wheelchair to get around just about all the time, doesn't really have movement on one side of his body. But the home that McElwain had in Gainesville was absolutely perfect for that family. Just the ramps and the wide doorways and the open hallways and everything else was set up perfectly for someone with disability. And the other part that I thought was interesting, McElwain had this converted garage that he would use to house, when opposing coaches would visit for the spring, whatever. He'd put him up in the converted garage, which was an apartment. Well, this one young man, Tyler, he's 20 years old. He has these disabilities. So this is a perfect first apartment for him. It's going to give him a chance to have, a little bit of independence, which he deserves at that age, but still be very close to mom and dad in case anything goes wrong. So, yeah, the jokes were really easy, but it turns out that there was a really important, interesting reason behind it, and I'm glad it got all the attention that it did, because it shines light on the foundation for this family at Tyler's Hope, and also it gives us a little bit of a lesson. Maybe we shouldn't just be throwing stones in glass houses all the time, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic story, and people should read it if they haven't. Matt, finally, another coach who I don't know if we'll come back in a couple of days and say, man, why are we taking so many shots at him? But you wrote about another former SEC coach. It seems like there are a lot of them out there right now. Hugh Freeze, he's coming to Tampa to speak to a Christian organization, and there is a tie to that area, is there not?
There is a tie to that area, because I don't know if it was the last tie or last time that Hugh Freeze was in Tampa, or one of them. He was on a recruiting trip and made a call to a number associated with a female escort service. That's obviously became a public record in one of the lawsuits, and that is what led to him now being the former Ole Miss head coach. So it's interesting that he's coming back here to give a speech at this Christian event down here in Tampa in a week or so, but not making any jokes there. We'll just kind of leave it at that. How's that, Paul?
Yeah, no, I mean, when it comes to you, Matt, I'm afraid to crack any jokes because you'll come back and say that Coach Freeze is down there, building homes for Habitat for Humanity. Anyways, one thing that we will end on is you did another story. You've been busy, man. You must be getting paid by the article about a stream of former Gators who are now being included in this program, and I sense that that's a pretty good start for Dan Mullen. But we have a headline up on the screen. We knew about Spurrier, but he's there a good bit. But others are coming by as well. And give us the backstory.
Yeah, Danny Werfel, Ahmad Black, Lewis Murphy, former Buck. Percy Harvin's around so much that players are starting to call him Coach Percy. I think Mullen's doing it for a couple of reasons. One, because he can, because he obviously spent a lot of time, spent a few years in Gainesville. Two, I think it's a way to kind of fire up the fan base, because they would rather talk about 2006 and 2008 than the debacle they just experienced last year. And I think the other thing is it's something to get the program and the players around it fired up. These are guys who played at a championship level and did very good things in Gators, or for the Gators. If he's able to get them kind of thinking, well, this is what they did, maybe it's what we should be doing too.
Interesting article, man. You could spend the rest of the day just reading Matt's articles down in Tampa. Matt, I hope you'll come back soon. We'll basically let you go back to work. I'm sure your editors wanting to know why you haven't published something in the last 5 minutes.
Well, I hope they're listening to this. Let's put it that way, Paul. Thank you.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Joe is up next. What do you say, Joe?
Hey, how are you, Paul?
Doing great. Thank you.
Big fan of yours. Never called before. Listened to you quite some.
Where do you live?
And I'm calling you from Canada, Windsor, Ontario. 7 minutes away from Detroit.
Sure. No, I know. I've slipped across the border.
Yeah, we're known for casino and adult entertainment bars. That's what we're known for.
Know it well.
So, big fan. Listen to you all the time. I really love you on game day. I think you're a great addition to the show there. That is my favorite show of all time.
Thank you very much.
And I will compliment you because I feel I need to, because I believe because of the demographic and where you're from, I believe you're still very impartial with your opinions. And I think that's why I appreciate you so much. A lot of people, it's hard for them to, you're from a school, you're from a region, some of that always leaks out in their opinions and their when they're doing their analysis. And so I like to compliment on that. I think that's why I appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that.
Because I am from Big Ten country, and I don't know how many people call from that area praising you, but I feel that they should. So anyway, the question I had was, Alabama has 2 FCS opponents, if I read the schedule right, coming up in the 2018 season. And Alabama is Alabama, and I just wonder if, when they went down to the playoff last year, it is, in a lot of people's opinion, that if Ohio State would have beaten Wisconsin by a couple touchdowns, maybe even 17 points, they might have squeaked in when let's face it, we all know that Alabama was clearly the better team than Ohio State. So I wonder, as they play weaker opponents, like those they call them cupcake weeks, which, you know, it's a little insulting to the FCS, but it is what it is. I was wondering if that's going to hurt them in time. You know, because they are who they are, and they're kind of living on the reputation. And I just wonder, in a tiebreaker, if that would be a concern, having two FCS opponents.
Yeah, I think it's embarrassing when you play those type of opponents, Joe. And you're right about last year. I mean, Alabama didn't get credit for beating FSU because they were the number 3 team in the country on the day they beat them. They ended up being a lousy team. So but I think the committee looked past that. A lot of the media folks did not. But I frankly think Alabama's schedule this year is pretty laughable. I mean, it's you schedule a couple of years in advance. You think Louisville is going to be a major opponent, and turns out Louisville is a punching bag. So you lose that, and then the rest of it. And the schedule is not going to get that much better in coming years. But you look at it, Louisville, Arkansas State, and then the Citadel and Louisiana. I mean, I count me out. I mean, I don't think any of those 4 games are worth watching.
Right. It's at the same time as a tiebreaker in the end, and as humans are voting on it, that being the committee. Yeah. I think that would have hurt them this year if they had 2 FCS going against OSU, and the argument on the other side of that is going to be the SEC schedule. But when you look at that, they'll play a quality opponent in the SEC championship game, but how many of those teams that they see on that schedule are going to be highly regarded? Auburn might be. I'm doing a lot of stumbling here because I'm not sure I can find another team that's going to be a top 10 team. Mississippi State will be a top 25 team. LSU, you think will, you're not sure. But beyond that, that schedule, you're right. If Auburn loses to Washington and then to Georgia and maybe somewhere they're not supposed to, and no one else really rises up, that is a problematic schedule. I agree with you. Yeah, I happen to notice that as I was getting excited for college football, maybe a little too early, but you just kind of miss it, and you dip into the schedule as soon as the ESPN website has them posted, and I happen to notice that. You mind if I ask you one more thing? Or
no, go right ahead.
I love college football. It is the greatest sport at the greatest level, and I just am blessed to be able to watch it every Saturday, and it's a special thing to me. But I feel some of the directions we're taking they're not very positive, and money gets into a sport, it turns it into a business and whatnot. But your opinion on, and it took me 13 seconds to think of this when I did, as far as money and players and paying players and all the stuff that the petitions and the idea it had, I think it's this simple. I think if you took the billions that were made and put it off to the side, don't pay athletes, keep the model, and after they have finished and graduated, you give them a little bursary as per, here's for your service, and if you don't make the NFL, here's $100,000 that we earned off your likeness, and have a nice life. I just put it aside, and then that would encourage them to go get their degree, and to and not to leave after a couple of years and whatnot. And if they make the NFL, make the NFL. If not, you got a free education plus a kickback to start the world with.
It's fascinating. It's a fascinating discussion. I tend to like it. Joe, listen, you brought a lot here. Thanks for calling. I hope you'll call back.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. And Charles is in Georgia. Hey, Charles, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
As beautiful a day as I am down here.
I bet we are.
It's one of those days that would be hard to be an atheist, I guess.
Well, I think that would be difficult anytime.
I know it. I talked to you a week or so ago with a brain teaser about officials making calls that instead of overriding them, or the possibility. I have another brain teaser for you.
Okay.
Will there ever come a day that all Division I schools will have to be in a conference, i.e. Notre Dame? Now, I know they have their big toe stuck in the ACC, but that's just about all, and not much. You know, it seems like a different set of rules for some schools, and they certainly don't share the wealth to a lot of other schools, and they are a school unto itself that does not need the wealth. But it just is like two different playing fields. And will there ever be a day that everything, even if we have to add to and add another conference, which, you know, I love college football, so it certainly wouldn't bother me, but I know it opens up a can of worms. What are your...
Yeah, but listen, I don't think that will be the case. I think it would be easier to legislate if everyone was. And by the way, Notre Dame's is the most confusing. For those who don't understand the situation with Notre Dame, they are independent in football, but I think every other sport they participate in the ACC, which
they do for like track and field and for
and of course in basketball. And you know, there is a stipulation. I think they play 3 or 5 ACC games.
But you know, as
whatever.
we know,
but you know, Notre Dame has done this to themselves. Though they're so greedy up there for a university that likes to pride itself on everything good in the world. Or helping everyone that needs help, that they missed the boat on the Big Ten. They should have been in the Big Ten 20 years ago. That is the natural geographical part of the country. They don't fit the ACC, but then the ACC doesn't fit. Half the schools don't fit anymore since they've gone up the East Coast. But by getting in a league, they would probably end up making more money. They think that people do not watch Notre Dame football on NBC to the degree that they used to. Now, this year was an outlier. They had a couple of pretty big games. But Notre Dame football today, compared to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, is a shell of itself. And that's just the truth. They're just another big school that used to be somebody important.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Larry is up next. Larry, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I feel better. You know, yesterday I was pretty tired, man. You know.
What got you so tired, Larry? I'm trying to remember.
I fished a bass tournament all day, and I bombed out. I bombed out.
Larry, I thought fishing was recreation, not like a workout.
Well, it's for money, and I bombed out, and I got my butt kicked. And when I come home, I drank a few beers. And
how do you get your butt kicked, Larry, at a fishing tournament?
Well, they weigh in more fish, and you better more weight than you weigh in. You only get to weigh in 5. You fish from daylight. I got up at 4:00 yesterday morning. You fish from daylight till 3. And I got beat. I had 2 lousy little peckers.
Larry, do you ever get out of the boat?
Yeah, I was fishing in my boat. I got a brand new boat.
Like once you get out there, can you take a break? Like go out for lunch and come back?
I could come up to my house. I live on the river and come up in here. Yeah. But I can't drink or nothing. I can eat a sandwich.
So was that the hardest? Was that the hardest part, Larry? Fishing without a Bud Light?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you're getting whooped. You're getting slapped around, you know it, and the fish are beating you. They're just like beating you, man. And then yesterday I want to man my fences with Big Ten John.
Larry, mea culpas don't look good on you, man.
I know. I don't want to do that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I know. But I do
stay your lovable, cantankerous self, okay?
I am. I'm going back to me, but I do want to say one thing.
I will say this though.
What?
And you don't want to hear it, but I think John could probably take you in a bass fishing contest.
Oh no, that's out. Yeah, no.
I doubt John's ever been bass fishing in his life, but I bet he could still handle it. And you know why, Larry?
Why?
Do we have a picture of Larry anywhere? Okay. We're going to show a picture of Larry for those. That's a picture of Larry right there. Imagine him on a boat at 5 in the morning. And, just take a look at this guy right here. And then we're going to go into the newsroom, the control room, and take a look at John Hayes. So you're telling me that guy, John Hayes, could not whip. Larry, John, have you ever fished?
I haven't gone bass fishing, no, but I'd like to think, just based on what we're talking about here, my boat would be zipping across the lake while Larry's would be, lagging behind.
Yeah, way faster. Faster.
Yeah.
Well, you know what you would be doing, John? You would be looking forward, and Larry would still be bragging. Hey, Bama beat y'all last year.
Yeah,
Larry. So you entered a bass fishing tournament here for cash, and you only came home with 2 little fishies, huh? Is that what happened, Larry?
Well, Paul, you have to tell everything to that Yankee. You have to tell everything. I mean, he didn't have to hear that, Paul.
I mean, Larry, you got taken at the bass fishing contest, my man.
Yeah, and it was by probably a dang Yankee. But if I went fishing with you, Big Turn John, if I didn't do any good, you wouldn't come back. Just like
it's not like I haven't heard that one before, Larry. Get some new material, buddy.
How about this one? How about y'all slow down in the control room so somebody can understand what you're saying? I don't have a clue what that guy said about Ireland, and I don't know what you said, but you're talking so fast, jibber-jabber. Y'all slow down a little bit so I can understand
try
it.
To slow down for
we
you,
will not
Larry.
talk fast anymore.
There. Thank you. And so, now, you Winder Liquors, let me ask you a question. The golf tournament's on, and we're playing for the Green Jackets.
We don't want to hear about this, Larry. You're a loser. You got. I don't want to hear about this golf. We want
to know how much you ponied up to get into the bass fishing tournament. How much did it cost you?
Do I have $105?
What was the prize?
About $800 or $900.
Nice.
So you paid $52.50 per fish.
Larry, why don't you go down to the local pub, pay somebody to beat you up? It's about the same thing.
Thank you, Paul. That really made me feel good yesterday when I come in just whooped. And then now today you take me.
Hey, Larry,
do
you realize this is 2018? And bass fishermen. I watch this stuff on television. I mean, they're in good shape. They work out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get into tip-top shape by chugging down beers, Larry. You got to go to the gym, man.
Yeah, I know, man. I need to get Big Ten John and show me some workout like they do on TV. Maybe help me out, work out.
Why don't you? I mean, Larry, when's the last time you went to the gym and worked out?
I can't remember. Back before this show, come on.
So, what do you do? What do you do for physical fitness?
Raise my right arm several times a day, and then raise my left arm to get the
Larry, do me Larry. Let's put your hands out right in front of you, like you're about to die. How far can you lift them up? Okay.
As far as I can lift them. Don't embarrass me.
No, Larry. I'm concerned about you because we don't need to lose you here.
Okay, I got it up.
No, I don't want to hear that, Larry. I promise you.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I just looked down on the board, guys, and saw a name I have not seen in a long time. He's a Florida Gator fan. He talked a lot of smack about how the Gators would beat everyone up, and then when they didn't, he disappeared. He's a Duke basketball fan. He talked about how Duke would beat everyone up, and then they didn't. He disappeared. So welcome back, Lance. I hope you've had a good fall and winter.
How's your Kentucky team doing, Paul? Don Calipari should be fired, man. Come on. You went 38-0, and he still ain't done nothing yet.
Man, you're so aggressive there.
Come on, man.
How you doing, Lance? Forget all that stuff. Are you doing okay?
I'm doing great, man. It's hard to get on this show, man. You don't understand. I ain't been ducking you, man. It's hard to get on the show, man.
Okay.
Last time I talked to you was LSU Florida week.
Yeah.
We got a new coach. And I don't know, man. That Matt Baker, man, got me fired up, inspired me to call. That guy needs to hawk up, shut the hell up, man. For anyone to say Felipe Franks is the most talented quarterback on our roster, shouldn't be allowed to talk about football, man.
So now you're a constitutional lawyer, huh?
Well, I'm just showing you right now, man. You would be banned for talking football. Everybody in Gainesville knows Emory Jones, it's the next time. I mean, this guy. I mean, come on, Paul. When he gets outside the pocket,
who did you have as the start? Who did you have as the best quarterback last year? I'm trying to remember.
I said Felipe Franks would start.
Yeah.
Was I right? I mean, when all your guests were talking about,
I think Florida ended up starting about 4 different quarterbacks. So I guess you were
when
right.
Y'all were giving Malik Zaire a little public love, Pat Dooley was scratching his head. Paul Finebaum didn't know what to do. I mean, man, don't start on me, man. When it comes to Gator football, there ain't nobody know it better, Paul. Don't act like they don't, man. All your guests were giving you Malik Zaire.
It's okay, hey, Lance, we got enough. There's enough commentators that talk about how right they are. Let me ask you a question, Paul. Lance. Tell me what Florida is going to do this year on the field, okay?
I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're definitely going to be improving offense. You know why? Because we upgraded at every position on offensive staff. I mean, Dan Mullen did a complete upgrade on his offensive staff. And another thing
are you going to be able to beat Georgia this year, Lance, is the question? Because I think Georgia pretty much owned you last year.
Yeah, but we all know that ain't normal, Paul. They get lucky and beat us 1 out of 5 years. I mean,
Lance, I was at the national championship game this year. I saw Georgia down there. I didn't see you.
You seen Georgia? Did you see them get beat on another Hail Mary? I mean, if they could defend a Hail Mary, they'd be dangerous. I mean, they want to talk about that defensive coach down there. I mean, come on, man. Hunker down, baby. Hunker down. Are they still hunkered down, Paul?
They had the best young recruiting coach in America. Hey, Lance, slow down, pal. Okay. Tell me how your program, Lance. Tell me how your program is going to be able to stop Georgia's juggernaut in recruiting. Okay.
Well, let's toss on the field. And when you put somebody like Emory Jones
I'm not hearing anything, Lance, because you know Kirby Smart is the best young recruiter in America right now. You do know that, don't you?
I do know that. And I understand Florida ain't got 3 years to catch up. I understand this year is as important as ever. I understand these next 2 years are going to be critical to the SEC. I ain't damn dumb, Paul. I mean, but if you want to celebrate second place, that's a classic damn Georgia fan.
They won the SEC, Lance. Slow down, man.
Wow.
Okay,
how many times
Lance.
25 years?
Hey, Lance, let me ask you a question. When is the last time your school won the SEC championship?
08.
08 was what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago? I can't remember. 10 years ago.
Yeah, hey, Paul. Before last year, Georgia winning the SEC. We've won 2 national titles since they won the SEC.
Yeah.
Don't come in here beating your mouth over Georgia, man. They got
10 years in the rearview mirror, Lance, and you're still talking smack.
You put him in a big game.
Hey, Lance, have you heard the show lately?
Yeah, man.
There's a new sheriff. Hey,
you need
hold
some
on.
Fire, baby. You need some fire on this show.
There's a new hey, Lance, there's a new sheriff of Smack Talk. This guy Matt in Gainesville, Georgia.
Oh, I'm scared to death, Paul. Smack Talk ain't my thing. I really like to talk football.
Lance, you don't sound good. You sound like you're living in fear of Matt and Daryl from Columbus.
Don't live in fear of nobody. We got damn oil. That's a ham, son. This guy can coach. Are you kidding me?
See, Lance, it's not as much fun talking smack. It's not as much fun talking smack when you won 4 games last year.
Well, damn, that ain't my fault. I don't coach the team, Paul. With Doug Nussmeyer waiting to bed every other Saturday, hell, nobody could call plays down there. Are you kidding me? That wasn't reflective on our talent. That was a reflective of our poor-ass coaching staff. Don't put it on my damn players.
Now you're turning on the coaches. That's a loyal fan. I love it.
Hey, I took up with Jim McElwain more than anybody. I supported Jim McElwain more than anybody.
I know.
But damn, man, when
now you're selling them out like a day old bread.
Hey, when you can't score a point in the fourth quarter against LSU at home, your ass deserves to be fired, Paul. Anybody can coach better than that. Give me a damn break. You had 3rd and 3, 4th and 3, and you ran the same damn play twice. Come on, man. Use the littlest receiver you have to go across the middle. That makes a lot of damn sense.
Hey, thanks, Lance. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to talk again soon.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
We are pretty fired up that the upcoming football season is slowly getting into focus, and you know it is when friends of ours like Bill Bender of the Sporting News start projecting things. Bill, it's been a long off season A lot of good things have happened, but college football is finally coming into focus. Seems like you've been spending a little time thinking about it. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for having me on. It's never too early to think about that, and plenty of early season predictions for everybody.
Well, let's talk. We'll eventually get to what we all need to know right now, and that's who's going to win the national championship in January 2019. But let's take it step by step. You've looked at all the conferences, especially the Power Five, isolated the teams that you think are going to emerge. So since we spend a little bit of time on the SEC here, and it's probably the easiest to predict, why don't you start there?
Well, I'm wondering how many listeners you have won't pick Alabama, Georgia. I just see two teams played in the national championship game last year. Alabama's loaded with talent. I know the quarterback's a question, but I don't think it really matters. And then Georgia, build up what they had last year. Jake Fromm's back, strong on both sides. It would be a shock to me if they weren't playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And keep in mind, last year they were the top two teams in the first two sets of college football playoff rankings. I think there's a possibility they could both get to the playoff again.
Yeah, and we took a look earlier, Bill, as I'm sure you have. They're not exactly playing giants non-conference. Georgia Tech for Georgia, that's a standard game. They don't have the Notre Dame game like they did last year in Alabama against Louisville, the least impressive opener for Alabama in many, many years.
Yeah, they're really heavily favored in that game, too. And obviously with Lamar Jackson not there, that will make them a very big favorite. And we know that Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide always have a tendency to make that big statement in the opener. So I was trying to figure out who would challenge these teams within the division. I think from Georgia, it may come from South Carolina. And then I think with Alabama, it may come from, the usual suspects. Auburn will be pretty good. LSU has some talent. And if you want to throw Mississippi State as a dark horse, that's fine. But I still don't see a way where it's not Georgia and Alabama in the championship game.
No, it is hard to imagine. Okay, so that's the SEC. Let's move to the ACC, where I'm sure one side of it is going to be fairly easy, but take us through that league.
Well, how am I not going to pick Clemson? I mean, look at their schedule. You want to talk about a decent look at it anyway. No Friday games. They got the game against Texas A&M early, but I think they're the prohibitive favorite given the guys they have coming back. I mean, you're looking at a team with potentially 4 first-rounders on their defensive line. That's unheard of. And then I think on the other side, it'll be Miami, Virginia Tech, probably at the top. But I like where the Hurricanes are. I think Mark Richt is going to, learn from last year's late-season collapse, but I still don't know if that's enough to catch the Tigers.
So it looks fairly similar there as well. Let's see if we can continue this track. Big Ten, Ohio State, something tells me that we'll hear their name mentioned in a minute.
Well, I think Ohio State's got the talent. They've got a quarterback race going with 3 guys. Whoever takes over there is going to be set up for success. On defense, you have Nick Bosa, potential number 1 pick. I think Chase Young could be a breakout star for them. It's very big to lose. And again, they're in that tough division. And then I think on the other side, Wisconsin has an easier road in the West and has been very good, but it's on them to win the Big Ten championship before they take that next step. I told this to Peter before I came on. I mean, I would put Michigan as the second team if Shea Patterson is eligible because I think they have the defense, and they were pretty close with Ohio State 2 years ago, but they absolutely need a better play out of their quarterback in 2018.
Yeah, I'd like to stop there, Bill, because are there any other conferences in the Power Five? Oh, I'm sorry, there are 2 more. Let's go to the Power Conference that occasionally gets a team in the playoff. Oklahoma was the participant last year. What about the Big 12?
Well, it's hard not to say Oklahoma and everybody else because I think that's just been the standard. Lincoln Riley picked it up. They get Kyler Murray's going to replace Baker Mayfield and put up big numbers. So when you say TCU could challenge or Oklahoma State could challenge or even Texas with Tom Herman, and I think they'll be better in his second season, that's fine. But I think it's on one of these teams to kind of break up this Oklahoma dynasty. And really, when you're talking about teams that I actually believe could win 2 playoff games, I think Oklahoma's the only team out of the Big 12 that I think that could be the case.
And before you even identify the two from the Pac-12, has there been a more maligned league in sports? I mean, it goes for everything, frankly. I may be missing some minor sports, but basketball was a washout. We know about football. Talk a little bit about the Pac-12. Good coaches now with Chip Kelly and others in the league.
Sure. The Washington-Auburn game is huge for that conference on so many levels because let's say Washington loses there and then they win the Pac-12. I still think they'll be punished more for losing to Auburn than they would winning the Pac-12. I hope that makes some level of sense.
Sure.
Washington and Stanford will both be pretty good. Stanford's got Bryce Love. He was in the Heisman mix. I think USC has some talent, but I don't know if they're good enough to beat Stanford and Washington next year. But again, Washington, we talked about this 2 years ago. It was great that they made the playoff, but was there anybody that believed that they were going to beat Alabama, let alone win 2 football games in the college football playoff?
No.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so I think it's on this league. That's why that Auburn game is such a statement game for the conference, coming off a wretched bowl season, coming off, not making the playoff, and wondering what the future of that league is in this pecking order of the Power Five.
So we've heard the two from each league, who makes the playoffs, and ultimately who will win the national championship.
Well, I think there's the list of teams that I think truly should be considered national championship contenders. I can give you off one hand. I think it's Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Now, something could happen on the road where 1 or 2 of those teams doesn't make the playoff, but those are the 5 teams I think that are set up that you can actually remember. It's not just making the playoff; you have to win both. Now that I say that, we'll probably have the craziest college football season of all time, and none of those teams will make it.
Do you have a feeling? I mean, of that group. I mean, is it just too cliche to go Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, or do you think anyone really projecting into the season will have separated itself before we even start?
Well, I think one, Clemson. I mentioned that defensive line, and that's the first thing. The 2 things I look at with a team are 1, quarterback, and 2, defensive line. If you have both at a very high level, you're going to be really good. And I think Alabama and Clemson are going to be very good up front. And then I think at quarterback, when you look at if Tua Tagovailoa takes that next step, becomes a Heisman contender, lives up to all this hype that we're piling on him, it could be truly special offense in Alabama. And then Clemson, once we get a look at Trevor Lawrence, you wonder if he's going to compete with Kelly Bryant. They have 4 guys that can run the football. So what I'm telling you, Paul, I think we're in for Clemson, Alabama 4 on some level, if I was predicting the championship game right now.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, it's hard to go against that. And I was talking to people in Clemson yesterday, and that's what you hear. You hear the defensive line over and over and over again, and there's no way to get around it.
Well, these are the 2 teams, all things even, have the most talent. Alabama's offense, as we've talked about and we all saw, had a bunch of young playmakers playing in the national in the toughest spot of the season. Young playmakers in the national championship game. Then on the other side, Clemson, they were able to pull the top player out of 5 different states in the last cycle. I think they're built to last. Dabo's got a machine going there, and when they play again, if they play again, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like last year where the defense is dominating. It takes that 1, 2, 3 plays that make a difference.
Bill, we will check back in with you soon. Thanks for your time. Really a lot to chew on there. I hope you're well.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Paul.
Great stuff.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network beginning at 3 Eastern.